Alright guys, let's talk about the brand Deep Blue. They've been around since 2007. They're based in New York, although they can get components from all over the world. Their movements can vary from the Japanese Citizen or Seiko-based movements all the way to some higher-end Swiss movements. And their components can also differ with respect to their dials and bezel inserts, things of that nature. But overall, they make some really nice dive watches. Their motto is Precision Diver, and that's even written on this watch. This is the DayNight Scuba T100. I gotta say, everything about this watch to me just feels rock solid. From the case design to the bracelet, even this package that you get, it's presented in like a Pelican style case, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'll throw up the company specs for this watch on the right. But essentially, it's about a 45mm dive watch. It feels and looks really hefty, but it does wear smaller than the dimensions would suggest. So again, 45mm case. From lug to lug here, it's about 52mm. Thickness, I measure just under 15mm thick. And then this lug gap here for your bracelet is 22mm, tapering nicely down to 20 at the clasp. So even though this does sound like it's a bigger dive watch, I think it does wear smaller than you would believe, and many different wrist sizes can probably pull this off. Now, what makes this the T100? It's not like a Terminator. It's the Tritium tubes that are in this watch. They're flat Tritium tubes, and they're applied on the hour markers, as well as on the handset. And this is also complemented by having a nice bezel that's fully loomed with BGW9 Superluminova. So I'm going to throw up a low light shot for you guys just so you can see how visible this watch is under low light conditions, and it's pretty impressive actually. You know, I've been spoiled with like ball watches that use tritium tubes, and they're the best in the business, but this is a kind of a close second, I would say. Now if we move on the dial, what you get here is a sapphire crystal covering the dial that has a coating of anti-reflective application on the underside. And then the dial itself says Deep Blue Precision Diver at the 12 with the symbol for the Deep Blue here. And then if you look closer to the 6 o'clock, it says the DayNight Scuba T100, 300 meters water resist, and it's automatic. Now, for this automatic movement, they went with the Miyota 9015, which I actually think is a really great choice. This movement is very similar to a Swiss-made ETA 2824-2 in the sense that they both beat away at 4 Hertz. It's hacking and hand wind, and you get about a 42-hour power reserve. With respect to accuracy, anecdotally, this thing is picking up about plus 5 seconds a day, which is well within its tolerances. Now you also get a date aperture near between 4 and 5. I think it works well with the position. I do wish it was slightly larger because sometimes the minute hand or even the hour hand can really pretty much block it out when it passes over. The dial itself is also a great color choice, I would say. This is kind of like a light sunburst orange. It's got this nice wave pattern for the bulk of a dial, but when you reach the perimeter where the tritium tubes are on the outside, it's just a very flat surface. But it gives some really nice texture and dimension to the overall look of the watch, and I think it's fairly unique and it plays really well. Now I'll flip it to the side so I can show you the crown. You can see that the crown, it's etched in nicely with the Deep Blue logo. Has some pretty nice crown guards, and I like the finish work on this watch too. You can see this is more of like a satin finish on the side, so it won't get all smudged up. But then along the top here, you get this beautiful polished bevel that extends from one hood of a lug all the way to the other, which is pretty cool. Now on the hood of a lugs, you get kind of a brushed finish, and this matches fairly well with the brushing that's done on the bracelet. for the solid end link here. So overall, I think it's finished pretty well. I really enjoy how well the bezel is finished. It's very easy to grip with this sawtooth pattern. Again, fully lume bezel, and it's very reassuring and positive and loud. So it's 120 quick unidirectional. And there's no backplay there once it's locked into place. Like, it's nothing. It's one of the most solid bezels I've felt on a dive watch from a micro brand ever. So it's pretty impressive. Now, let me talk a little bit about the bracelet of this watch, which is very, very solid. Again, I've got the second hand, so you can see it's kind of been beat up. There's some desk dive marks on it at the clasp, but you can see at the clasp it does say Deep Blue Precision Diver with the Deep Blue symbol. It's got the flip lock, and it's kind of like a clamshell deployment here. Nicely milled out here. And then they even included room for a dive extension too, which a dive extension is done at a pretty high standard as well. Yeah, something interesting I want to mention about the bracelet too is it has screw links and half links here to hold it in place. But these are actually double-sided screws, so you note that there's a screw here, and if you flip it on the other side, there's also screws on the other side. So this is a very secure system for sizing a watch, but it's slightly cumbersome to size because you essentially need to hold one screw in place and then unthread on the other side to actually release a screw pin. But I mean, the bracelet itself it's really solid. This is what an actual screw pin looks like, which is like really thick and really solid. So I appreciate that about the watch a fair bit. So let me show you the case back because that's pretty cool. First off, note that they're solid end links. And then you get a really nice etched in scuba diver where it says Deep Blue in the center. And then you just have some information, you know, it's got the automatic movement, 300 meters water resist, sapphire crystal. And it's a screw-in case back as well, lending to that really high water resistance. And there's a wrist shot, guys. So as you can see, for my just over 7 1/4 inch wrist, I think it wears really well, even though you'd think it's a pretty beefy watch. But I think, you know, if you've got a 7-inch wrist or larger, you can easily pull this guy off. So are there any negatives to this watch? Well, there really isn't a perfect watch out there. For this guy, I think I mentioned it before, but I'll reiterate. I think that the date window is pretty small. I wish it could be slightly larger. Along the lines with that, I think, well, I do really enjoy the Roman sword style hands. I wish that the minute and second hand were slightly longer, so they just extend to the very tip of the perimeter of the case, just so it would be a little easier to get a quick read on time. But I do really enjoy that handset, so that's not really a deal breaker at all. Now, again, for the bracelet, well, I do appreciate how solid it is. It's a little cumbersome to size with the double-sided screws. And then for the clasp, it's very solid, but I wish maybe they went with like a dual twin trigger deployment instead of just this clamshell type of deployment. But overall, guys, I'm thoroughly impressed with this dive watch. I didn't think that it would be stealing so much of my wrist time, but honestly, I keep going back to this one as of late. Even though my tastes have changed, and I tend to go towards smaller watches near the 41 to 38 millimeter, this feels great if you want wrist presence and you just want something that just feels rock solid. I would recommend picking up a Deep Blue watch, guys. So that's it for this video. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.